I'd like to take a moment today and talk to you a little bit about politics, because I've had a few people ask me about it, and they were wondering, because I live outside of America for so long, what might my opinions of what's going on in the States be as far as the political landscape. I hear from people all over the world, Europe, Africa, all throughout Asia, South America, everywhere pretty much. People have an opinion about this, and I hear very unfiltered opinions. I think that one of the biggest problems when I go home and talk to friends from back home is their opinions are extremely filtered, because they're listening to opinions that are extremely filtered, whether it's from the media, what they're reading on the news, what they're seeing on their phones. It's all filtered. I mean, I went home recently to see my family. Every morning they wake up with Fox News or CNN. It seemed like there were polarities. You were either polar left or polar right. You were either on one team or the other, which was odd, because I felt like America used to be a team. I mean, granted, people had opinions on both sides, but there was so much animosity toward the other side from whatever side the person felt like they were on, that there was no real wavering. I do enjoy reading and watching the opinions of people in the States. It's kind of the way that I connect with people back home. Recently, in the last few years, it's been comical. That's kind of how a lot of people in the world feel. My friends, my Chinese friends, had high respect for Obama, and I haven't been around for most of Obama's term, so I can't really say his policies and what he's done politically, but I can tell you the perception of Obama from most Chinese people has been he's a good image, a good face of America. And that's important, because the people outside of the world, maybe their English isn't as good, maybe their perception of the actual policies that are enacted by certain presidencies are not as clear. They look specifically at the perception of whoever is in power, and they say, that person looks like he has integrity. That person speaks his mind in a clear and well formatted way. And you have to put it to Obama that when he spoke, it felt like it was from the heart, and it felt like what he was trying to do was for the American people and also for the world community. I don't know if you guys know about the Chinese political landscape, but let me give you a kind of a juxtaposition, I think they say. The country of China is run by a Politburo, a core group of extremely powerful people. There is no voting. The Chinese people know when the next power comes in. They know who the next president is, but it's chosen by a small group of people, not in any way voted for. When you remove that control from the people, it kind of makes things easier for the populace. Sort of like, well, this is the guy you got, this is the guy you're going to deal with. You obey what he has to say, and he's going to enact policies that are going to be what he thinks. That's the way it is. In many ways, especially being an American, you can say that's a horrible thing. Whatever the case may be, the Chinese people are sort of spoon-fed their choices. They don't really have a lot of choices. The choices that these guys make have led China to a very livable position for most people that live on the coast. Now, the inland China is still quite poor. There's a lot of farming and rural landscapes, and people are striving to make ends meet. But I have been in those areas, and people there are quite happy. They live their lives, they have children, they have friendships. And in each one of these little villages in China, they have representatives from the government that are there to listen and try to make solutions to problems. I have seen, actually in China, protests for, at one point in time, they were going to do like a waste dump, like for toxic chemicals in Ningbo. And a bunch of citizens got up, they protested, and the government decided that, okay, this is what the people want, and they decided not to build that waste dump here. So there are certain things. It's not 100%, this is the only way it's going to be. People do have a voice here, and they have used that voice more recently to enact positive changes. China is not the communist country that it once was, and it has changed quite a bit. And I'm going to go so far as to say this might be one of the safest places in the world right now. And that's crazy to think. When I moved here, I remember it was 4 o'clock in the morning one day, and I went for a walk down sort of an alleyway, sort of a poor district. The American in me was like, I need to be careful, because if I'm in my hometown of Detroit and I was walking down an area like this, I would be in potential danger. I would have to have all my senses going to make sure that I wasn't robbed, or an act of violence wasn't caused towards me for some crazy reason. That was a long time ago, and today I realized that that was probably one of the safest places I've been. I've been in extremely poor areas of China, extremely dirty. In your mind, you equate like dirty, dark, dangerous places as places where you need to worry, but in China they might be dirty and dark, but they're not dangerous. I'll also say that there are dangerous situations in China. There are crazy situations. People are eating dogs down south. They don't eat dogs here in Ningbo. They don't eat dogs in 99.9% of China. They're living by those rules that they had made up thousands of years ago. So you can't really fault them. But you can also look at them and see that there are protesters there. There are people trying to change the status quo, and that's great. You know, America has been afforded the opportunity of being a country that is pretty new, and the people that came to America brought all of the knowledge and all of the wrongs and rights with them, and they've allowed people to kind of tweak the system. And so China is thousands of years old, so the way that they tweak the system has to be a lot slower because so many people are ingrained in the old system. That causes a little bit of a slowing of change, whereas in America, hey man, we just came here 200 years ago, we want this and this and this because we've seen all of that stuff, and those people aren't here anymore. We've created our own system, and so we're going to make it our way, and it's a little bit more progressive, so things change a little bit more rapidly in the States than they do in China. That being said, again, China has changed a huge amount in the short time I've been here. And I've talked to some people who have been here for 10 plus years, 15, 20 years, and they can see an enormous difference. We're talking a system that was really communistic, really controlled, everything was controlled, to now, although the governmental system is still very top down, they control it from the top, and then everybody kind of has to change underneath it. The top is changing. You know, the small group of people that I said control China are making things that are supporting the people and trying to make the people more comfortable. And also, China is extremely wealthy right now. And in a time when a country has a lot of wealth coming in, there's not a lot to complain about. I have been to North Korea, okay? I have been in North Korea, in Pyongyang. I ran a marathon there. I'll put a video below, you can watch it. I was extremely surprised at how nice the people were there, how accommodating they were, how happy they were, but I also saw strict controls. North Korea was what China was 50 years ago. So I got to peer into what life was like. It was also a place that didn't have a lot of wealth. And when you have a communistic system without the opportunity to provide for the people, because communism is predicated on the fact that the government gives you everything that you need. So as long as they're giving you everything that you need and you don't need for much, you're okay. But those North Koreans that I saw, you could tell that the happiness was getting whittled away because they couldn't get fed. When you're hungry, really hungry, and the people around you and the people that you care about are hungry, you start to get angry. And this anger festers. And with the movements that North Korea is making, I'm thinking that that anger will develop into revolution eventually, which is a good thing for North Korea. I think they need to have some sort of an upheaval. The problem is that they're brainwashed so much to think that their leader is a god, and the leader's grandpa is the god of gods. I mean, Kim Il-sung, who is Kim Jong-un's grandfather was regarded and installed in North Korea by the Russians as the ultimate ruler and a god to follow. That control is hard to break. Although with poverty and your family hungry and horrible things happening that are out of your control because you don't really have the control to feed yourself, you don't have the control to try to make more money, things end up happening organically. In North Korea, you have a big black market because normally all the food that you grow has to go to the government, and then the government disseminates it around. Well, right now, people that are so hungry are starting to grow their own food, so much so that the North Korean government has tried to tweak their system and allow people, said, okay, well, if you grow food, you can keep X number of food for yourself, but the rest goes to us. But even that isn't enough. I saw some amazing things in North Korea. Maybe I'll get into more of that later, but I'm trying to talk about American politics. But I'm also trying to talk about American politics from the place where I am and what I have seen. I went home recently and I heard some people saying that today is like, it's the worst it's ever been. The world is in chaos. People are cutting people's heads off. It's a horrible place. I'm not saying that the world isn't messed up. In fact, it's very messed up. But we have been in worse times than this. I simply use the fact that I traveled to North Korea as an example. I traveled to North Korea. I have the ability to go to this country. I had the ability to talk to people. And maybe I was a little careful in the wording of what I said to these people, but I definitely sat down and said, you see me, I'm American. I'm not scary. And I'm not here to take you over. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to learn from you, to learn what you have to say, and also show you what I have. And I showed them pictures of my family and my sister's kids, and hopefully that kind of sunk in some way so that they can say, okay, I met an American and he wasn't so bad. Who would have thought that an American could live comfortably in China? You know, who would have thought that I would feel safe here and comfortable and happy? You know, in a place with so little freedom, I can feel very free. I can go anywhere I want in China. I can do almost anything I want other than break the law of the land. And a lot of the laws of the land are very sensible. Don't hurt anybody. Don't steal. Don't cause violence. One of the negatives to that is don't speak too much of your mind. Obviously in China they're trying to control certain situations, so you can't just start a political revolution as a foreigner. I think I would be either kicked out of China or worse. But as long as you fit within the line, you don't ruffle any feathers, you try to be supportive of the community, you're regarded fairly well. All of my expat friends could say the same. We are blocked. For example, this video that I'm making right now is going to have to go across the Chinese firewall. They call it the Great Firewall of China, and you have to literally get a program that allows you to bounce your signal to a computer in the States, and then the computer in the States actually uploads your video. It's called a VPN. Most foreigners here have them. Some Chinese have them. But most Chinese live within the system of China, and they use the Chinese version of Facebook, the Chinese version of YouTube, the Chinese version of, you know, of all of these programs and websites so that they can live a life that's seemingly normal. Maybe they don't have contact as much with the outside world as I do, or really with the outside world as much as you do if you're watching this outside of China. But it doesn't really affect their lives too greatly because they have substitutes for this. So back to America. America is free. Everybody is allowed to be who they want to be, and I think that's great. I think that is amazing that I come from a country that allows for these freedoms. But I also believe that things have gone quite out of hand. I agree with most of Americans and most of the people in the world that politics, in essence, can be corrupted and has been corrupted. And in America, there's no finer example than what is going on there right now. I had a friend on Facebook message me and he's like, hey Matt, I've seen that you were a big Bernie Sanders fan. And this guy was a staunch anti-Hillary and pro-Trump supporter, and obviously negative of Bernie. And he said, I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say and why you feel this way, because it just seems so counter to sense. And he's an American, living in America, being fed all of the American, Fox News rhetoric. And I've watched that too. I've tried to expose myself to as much different media as possible. I watch the BBC, I watch CNN, I watch Chinese news and their perception of the politics here, and I watch Fox News, and I watch it all. I feel like as long as you're open to everything, you can make a clear and defined assessment of almost any situation, as long as you have enough information. So he asked me, why are you supporting this guy? What do you think of American politics? And this is kind of what I told him. I said that, to me, the most important thing about any person is their integrity. What they feel on the inside towards people and policies and stances. When I watched Bernie, I could tell that the man wore his heart on his sleeve, and he was looking to change the system to provide more for people that don't have enough. I didn't agree with everything that he said. And to be honest, he's radical. Had he become president, most of the things that he proposed that were really radical would never see the light of day. But he would be a step in the right direction. And I feel like we do need somewhat of a revolution in America to kind of get us back. We're so polarized, but even the two polar opposites are way up here. For example, paid for schooling. Being able to go to university for what you want to do in life and not having to worry about paying for it for the next 20 years. To me, that sounds extremely positive, extremely powerful, something that the government is responsible to help educate the people of its country. Free schooling is a great way to do that. And I live in China. These people are smart. They work very hard. These kids that come out of school in middle school, they go to school afterwards and they're studying after. It's ingrained in the culture. You work hard, you get smart, you graduate school, and you get a good job. In the United States, we've got this whole freedom thing. We can do whatever we want. We can pay for our own schooling, and that's the way it's going to be. Because you know what, when you get out, you're going to work hard and get a good job. Well, sometimes people take a while to get that good job. And maybe their family spent so much and took out loans or whatever to help them simply get that education. It creates an obstacle when you're in the workforce. You're starting out from a negative. You're getting into the world and you've got this big sack on your back. And you might say, well, that pushes somebody to get a good job. Well, it also pushes people into depression. Because if you don't get that job right away and you're saddled with that debt, I know, I've had debt up to my ears. I've been in debt $100,000 in high interest debt, and it's horrible. I used to have a full head of hair. And I think debt is a huge factor in the loss of my hair and the ulcers. I had ulcers because of stress, and I was worrying about how I'm going to live day to day and pay my bills. It's horrible. And if you're not saddled with that, maybe you are free to choose a job that you want to do, to take your time and find the right thing. And maybe that lack of pressure will allow you to take a deep breath instead of, I gotta get what I gotta get that job, or else I'm screwed. My family's risked all this stuff to pay me to go to college, or I wasn't able to get that loan to go to college, and I never was able to get that education. And what am I gonna do? Maybe I'm just gonna sell drugs, be like my friends, and maybe I'm just gonna feed off the welfare system like X, Y, and Z I've seen. I've been to other countries that have free education. I thought it was a great thing. I thought it was a system that worked for the country. I was in a car accident a few years ago. I have 7 screws and a steel plate in my shoulder because I got hit by a truck while I was riding on my cycle tour. I went and I had an MRI scan by a machine, a GE, General Electric machine, at a hospital that had all fine equipment, and I had really good care. It wasn't fantastic. I won't say that it was better than America, but I got what I needed to get healthy again, and it cost pennies on the dollar. I had an open surgery on my shoulder. I stayed in the hospital afterwards for about 2 weeks. The whole thing cost around $6,000. And I had IV bags every day, 5 IV bags. I had a doctor come in and visit me twice a day. I had my own room with another guy. It was a 2-person room, and I felt cared for. It was a little dirty. It was Chinese, and it was cheap. How do you balance that system? Insurance companies have kind of sat back and they said, well, we're going to get paid whatever, so we're going to jack it up. And why does healthcare cost so much? Because they can get it from the people that have insurance, and the people that don't, or the people that might for some reason have to pay for it, have to pay a lot more. Now, I know Obamacare's out there and different things, but there's still premiums with that. I like the idea of free healthcare. I think that your country's people are hurting. It's your job to help them. That makes sense to me. And I like the way that Bernie put it. So I was a Bernie fan. And when my friend was, saying that he supports Trump, I think that he probably supported Trump for a lot of the similar reasons that I supported Bernie, because he was different. He was kind of a maverick. He was looking for change, and he was going to ruffle the system. And if you are working in an office and you don't like the way the office is running, do you put a rabid tiger in your office? I mean, that rabid tiger is going to really mess things up. He's gonna make some change. But you know what? What's gonna be left? And how are you gonna rebuild after that? And can the office survive being in that state of chaos for that long? What I believe is that we need some pressure to enact change. We don't need this. Everybody likes this, right? Everybody likes change. But what happens at that moment, at the enacting of change? We're talking maybe 4 years, maybe 10 years of chaos. And what comes out of that chaos? We went into Iraq and unseated the guy in power there. And that was this. It took no time at all to go in there and ruffle the system. And now it's a breeding ground for more terrorism. I don't think you need a blunt object, which is what I think Trump is. Deep down, he might be a great guy. I don't know. I don't know Donald Trump. I idolized him as a younger businessman. I even applied to be on The Apprentice when I was younger. As a business person, I thought, this guy's made a lot of money. He's apparently successful. I wouldn't mind having his ear to hear what he has to say. He puts out an image of a reality TV. I'm on the outside of the world here, and people out here think it's insane. I rarely talk to anybody that is a supporter. Most people are really worried about what's going to happen with the future. So you have this character, and he really is a character, and people say that maybe he'll change and be more serious when he gets in. Well, if you've got to be this goofy in order to get the job, what are you going to change into when you get in? Oh, I'm going to settle down. What is he going to settle down to? It's hard to take this position because most politicians are fakes anyways. They say what they need to say to get in, and once they're in, they do whatever they want. But just because they do that doesn't mean that I have to agree or support them, And that leads me to Hillary. She definitely has more political experience, more experience in government. In this climate, that might not be such a great thing, but it is what it is, and she kind of knows how the wheels of the system run and might be able to continue the status quo, which nobody wants. I know that. Nobody wants to continue what has been going, because obviously what has been going has not been what everybody wants, which is crazy because government is supposed to be doing what everybody wants, and we end up picking these people and they never quite do what we want them to do, or they do what a slim group of people want them to do, and it's very sad. When you look at Hillary, she's got a lot of baggage, and she has flip-flopped a lot, and it's very obvious. I've seen videos of it, of her position in one place and her position in another place and another time. I don't like that either. My choice is between bad and bad. If my choice is that, I don't know who to choose, and I'm not going to get in Trump's camp because I don't like Hillary, and I'm not going to get in Hillary's camp because I don't like Trump. I'm at a loss. And a lot of people here feel the same way. I would say that most of the world is leaning towards Hillary just because she's not as scary as Trump. And that's not to say that people are like, well, people in foreign country, they like the system the way it is. And, if Trump's going to come and change it, they don't want that change. It's not true. They don't want instability. People in the world, like everywhere in the world, I think, can say that they like stability. And I know that this has gotten very long, and I apologize. I just wanted to kind of put out, this is kind of like what the world thinks. The world's very afraid. at least my world, which is, you know, a broad spattering of expats and Chinese. They all are worried, and they're all concerned, and I am too. The problem is, and it's not a problem, it's great, is that we can see everything. Media is everywhere, and if somebody gets their head cut off in Iraq or in Syria, you can see it on your phone, which is residing in your pocket, and then you can talk to the guy on the bus about it within 10 minutes of it happening. As great as media is, it inflates everything, and it makes everything much more scary. People have been killed by terrorists forever, everywhere. You know, there are uprisings in Africa. People are being murdered and mutilated and raped in the streets, you know, way back, and even today. But we didn't really hear about it so quickly, so easily, so readily, and have mouthpieces talking about how the world is falling because of this everywhere. I mean, when I went to the States, it was, I couldn't take it. There were so many people saying the sky was falling, and here I live in China, and I'm like, the sky isn't falling here. Everything seems very comfortable here. I've been to Indonesia. I've been to many countries. I've been to, you know, all around Asia and Europe and different places, and there isn't this sky is falling mentality as much as I've seen it in the States, and it scares me that we're so influenced by this message that is just bzz, bzz, bzz in your head. I can understand, you know, how people have felt like it's been so bad that we need to really make a revolution. How in this need for revolution did we come up with these two people, these two running mates, which are so I think neither of them are good for America. I don't know. That's my rant. I wanted to talk about that. It's raining. There's not much going on. Annie is feeling very down today, and I'm feeling down because of it, and I don't know quite what to do. And I'm looking at comments, and one person was commenting about the political landscape and asking me my opinion. So that's my opinion. I think what the world needs is more love and more consideration and a little bit more of an open mind instead of this overreaction. You know, I'm going to close with this. My dad probably said one of the most important things he's ever said to me when I was young. I don't remember the circumstances, but I remember the words. He said, Matt, in all instances, in everything that you do, try to put the other person's shoes on. Wear that counterpoint. Feel what that other person is feeling. To me, I think that's one of the most important things, to be empathetic to other people's circumstances to the extent that you understand their point, even if it's opposite from you, you understand it. And from that line, you can grow unity. I think there are a lot of closed-minded people in the States that they don't even want to think about the other side. I think the important thing, instead of calling people childish names, would be to put their shoes on for a minute and think about what they're going through, think about their lifestyle and maybe where their views came from, what can be done to kind of merge the two, because we are a country that is a melting pot. China is 99.999% Chinese, and there's a small percentage of us foreigners that live here. But in America, it's different. We are a community, and we are an example of the world. And right now, I think we're being a very poor example, and the world sees it. If you've got a crazy view about somebody else, put their shoes on. Take a deep breath and think about what they're feeling and why they're feeling it. Everybody, whether it's black, white, cop, citizen, military person, Muslim, Christian, you just put their shoes on. Take in their life and try to understand where they're coming from. And if everybody did that, the world will be a better place. And I think America would be viewed a little bit more positively than it is now. Anyways, I'm going to close this one out. Why don't you post your comments below? I'm sure you probably have some. But I think it's important to hear the views of somebody outside, maybe that's seen some different things. Subscribe, comment, like, dislike, and I'll see you tomorrow.